Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a fun show for you. That's right. Mathews has committed. That's awesome. The Vols are flying up the rankings. And also, we're going to talk about our buddy Lane Kiffin. He had to throw a little shade on the Vols. That's pretty typical for him. Now, I wanted to cover this last night, but on Wednesday night, I play in a golf league most of the time. And I didn't get done until after 9. It was like dark. I think I got home at like 10. It was just too late. So I wasn't really able to do that. And I almost did a video yesterday about him committing because I was so confident that he would. But then I thought, you know what? That could jinx the situation, and I didn't want to do that. So I didn't. In hindsight, obviously, I should have, and I could have just launched it last night. But so be it. Live and learn. Anyway, we're going to talk all about this Mathews committing and then our boy Lane. And here you see it says Tennessee makes big jump in the On3 industry team recruiting rankings. Talks about how we continue to build things, etc. Mike Mathews, who is a 5-star out of Georgia, which is it's really nice that he's out of Georgia. That is sweet. Because I'm going to tell you what Georgia would have done had they gotten him. They probably wouldn't have used him at wide receiver. They'd have put him as a defensive back because that's how Kirby thinks. He's going to take his best athletes and he's going to put them in the defensive backfield. And he'd have had probably 2 or 3 interceptions against Tennessee in his career and broken up about 10 passes and just caused us nothing but grief. But instead, now he's going to be a wide receiver at Tennessee and cause havoc for Georgia because they're going to have those great defensive backs, but he's a great wide receiver. And then with our offense and with Nico, Georgia, you got some problems down there. So anyway, I'm pretty fired up about it. And Mathews was the number 14 overall prospect, according to On3. And he was the number 3 recruit in the Peach State, which tells you how much, if you want to know why Georgia gets so many great recruits, he was the 3rd best recruit in the state of Georgia, and he's number 14. It's rare for us to have a 5-star in the state of Tennessee, much less multiples. Well, he was the 3rd. So they had 2 guys in the top 10, obviously. And the thing that he talked about was the culture. You're hearing all kinds of things about how great the culture is at Tennessee, and of course the fan base. I mean, it's unreal. And the offense. It says everybody is bought into what Tennessee is doing. They have great support. Their fans have also stood out to me. But he said Tennessee's offense may have been the biggest thing for me. They will throw the ball and allow me to show my talents, and that was very important to me. Going to Tennessee will give me a great opportunity to produce on the field. And this is what I've been telling you folks for the last 12 months. We are not going to have any trouble getting quarterbacks and wide receivers because they're going to get to showboat. And look, when you're a young athlete and you're playing Division I sports, you want to show your skills. That's just the way that it is, and he's going to get to do that in a major way, and he knows it. He saw what the 4-stars and 3-stars and a 2-star Cedric Tillman did at Tennessee. What do you think a 5-star is going to do with a 5-star throwing it to him and Nico? So he sees the handwriting on the wall that if he wants to have huge numbers and be a massive college star, you want to come to Tennessee. It's just a fact. Here it's talking about the recruiting momentum continues to grow. We've just picked up 3 straight 4-stars and now a 5-star. And most importantly, all the negative recruiting that's been done to us for the last 3 years that has been hanging over us with other coaches and other teams saying, they're going to get a bowl ban. You're not going to get to play any big games. Oh, you wouldn't go there. They're going to have a huge scholarship reduction. Just don't go there. That would be all. Go anywhere but there. And of course, all the national media types never bring those 3 years of that cloud up as any form of punishment because it doesn't fit their narrative. And narrative is very important in the national media. Always remember that. They have a narrative in everything they do. And they're going to leave out the stuff that doesn't support it, and they're going to hammer the stuff that does. And now let's take a look at the team rankings. Georgia's still number 1, Ohio State, and then Alabama has popped up in 3rd. We knew that was going to happen. It was only a matter of time. Florida, they moved down to 4. They're still having a great year recruiting. And then we moved up to number 8 from 14. Now, we've only got 17 recruits so far, which that's, other than Alabama, I think we're one of the lowest. I think there's one, Clemson has 16. So most of the teams have 20, 22, 18, etc. Michigan's already got 26. We'll jump them, but it's going to be very difficult to get in the top 5. But I think if we can finish, somewhere around 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that neighborhood, especially getting the talent that we're getting, we're going to be fine because we don't have to have as good a talent. We just need to be in the ball game with them because with our offense and we have a coaching advantage. It's just a fact. We have a scheme advantage and a coaching advantage. Our coach doesn't do stupid things during the game. Some coaches do. So anyway, I think we're doing really well, and we've got 3 more coming behind Mathews. We've got Edwin Spillman tomorrow night, be Friday, and it's between us and Ohio State. So we'll check that one out. Hopefully he commits. I think he will. He's leaning Vols. I don't see him going to Ohio State. His brother is already at UT. Then July 26th, we got Kai Bates. That's a big one. That's a defensive back, a cornerback, and he's a shutdown cornerback, a very high 4-star, top 100 type guy. So we need to get him. It's between us and LSU. He's going to get to play at UT quicker than he will at LSU. They've got a ton of talent down there. That state's very easy to recruit, much like Georgia. If he wants to get on the field early, he'll come to Tennessee, and that's what he's been talking about. Then on August 5th, Amari Jefferson, he's a wide receiver out of Tennessee. He's leaning slightly to Alabama, but we get one more shot at him. He's going to come visit. And I think Heupel will get him turned around, and hopefully, like he did with Arian Carter last year, when literally Saban was sitting in Carter's living room the week he committed and tried everything to get him down there to Bama. And you're going to see this year, you're not going to be able to keep Carter off the field. You're just not. So there's a lot going on with recruiting. But now we're going to get into our boy Lane Kiffin, who's throwing shade at the Vols again. And this story was in Knox News. It was written, and this story actually came from the Mississippi Clarion Ledger. And I'm not going to try to pronounce this gentleman's name. I'll just spell it out on the preset. It says, Ole Miss football coach Lane Kiffin was leaning towards a no comment when asked about the recent verdict announced in Tennessee's NCAA recruiting scandal, but he found a way to take a sarcastic jab at his former employer. I'm shocked. Lane never does anything like that. Taking a cheap shot at Tennessee? He's so Steve Spurrier 2.0. And here he says, I got a lot of thoughts on that case and the case at USC. We're going to talk about that. And the case at Tennessee and the penalties and all that. He said, I'm not really going to get into that, but watch him. He says, we're here to talk about Ole Miss team, happy for Coach Heupel. I read, here he goes. He wasn't going to get into it, but here he goes. He said, I read where he was ecstatic about the penalties and the $8 million fine. So that kind of probably tells you about how severe the penalties are in their eyes. He said, I'm happy for them that they don't have to go through what we went through. So good for them. He's obviously talking about the problems he had at USC. I may need a moment on this one. Let me get warmed up. You just don't jump out on the course unless you've really stretched. All right, here we go, Lane. I got a few thoughts of my own. Number one, you knew USC was in trouble and getting ready to get hammered by the NCAA when you took that job. That's number one. Number two, when you left Tennessee after 1 year, after you'd been treated like gold in Knoxville, and your family too got treated like gold, what did you do? Not only did you leave, you left 24 hours away from the National Signing Day. The worst time you could have possibly left UT. You left us in a horrible lurch. All the recruits that had committed didn't know what to do. You were crashing our class. You tried to get 3 or 4 of them to follow you to USC, and so did Coach O. You took Coach O with you, who was the defensive line coach at the time, as I recall. And you did all of that knowing the NCAA problem.
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
So you've got nothing to complain about. And the fact that you got fired on the tarmac and were not even allowed to ride with the team after you'd been canned was just rewards for you. Then you were on the outs for a decade because nobody trusted you because you left Tennessee high and dry so badly. You ruined yourself in the SEC. Only Nick Saban with his famous rehab center was able to bring you back into the fold and even give you even a shot to coach in the SEC ever again. And you'll creak Ole Miss eventually. You know you will. You almost did when you went over there and started flirting around with Auburn, which tanked your season, by the way. You were 8-1 when that happened. Then you lost, 5 of the last 6 or 4 of the last 5 because your team knew you were leaving because you wrecked the chemistry. That was your fault. It was your fault you went to USC, not the NCAA's fault, and it was your fault you crashed last year's season because that's what you do. So, Lane, anytime you want to take a smack at Tennessee, I'm going to respond. You know I will. I almost think that's what he wants. You knew I was going to have to get that off my chest. He is not going to throw shade at the Vols ever, especially after what he did to us. Anyway, he's still a good coach. All right, folks, just thought I would cover those 2 news events. I tell you, our recruiting's going well. I think we're going to have a great 2 weeks here. Awesome to start out with a 5-star. That really helps our recruiting, and it looks great for the future. we're getting the right guys. I'm telling you, even if we don't wind up in the top 5, we wind up 6, 7, 8 or whatever. We got the right guys last year. We're getting the right guys this year. And that's the most important thing. You need the proper dudes for this culture. Yeah, you can do like Texas A&M, throw a ton of money at a bunch of guys just based on their star rankings. How'd that serve Texas A&M? You've got to have guys that fit your culture and that are good dudes. And that's what Heupel's doing. That's why the GPA is 3.15, the highest it's ever been in the history of UT football. Grades tell you a lot about a culture. It means these guys are doing the right things. They're taking their studies seriously. They're taking football seriously, and they're going to be quality individuals. When you start seeing the GPA crash, that means they're partying and they're getting in trouble. It's just a fact. I know. I lived there. I lived at Gibbs Hall. I'm telling you the truth.
He ain't lying.
Well, hey, folks, I do want to let you know I'm going to be trying to go live for the first time tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm going to have Big Vol Daddy on as a guest. He actually invited me the first time I ever did a live show. He invited me onto his show, and I asked him to wait because I was really new at it. And a few months later, when I got comfortable, I did go on his show, and I told him, I said, I want you to be my first guest since you were the first person to invite me. And we're going to have some fun talking about the Vols and doing all that stuff. Now, we're having terrible lightning storms over here, so my computer might go out. That could keep me from being on at 7, or I might have technical difficulties because I've never gone on live before. Now, I've been practicing, so I think I'll be okay. And if you do watch, I may need a little bit of feedback on, hey, how's the volume, etc. I have been watching back some of my unlisted ones that I've been doing, and it looks like the camera's fine and all that, but I just want to make sure the volume's good and all that. We're going to talk about Vols, and I'll be answering questions on comments, and so will Big Vol Daddy. So be sure to check that out again. I'm going to try at 7 o'clock. If for some reason I'm not there, it's because of technical difficulty or my power got knocked out. But hopefully we'll see you at 7 tonight. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols and all that good stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just boom, hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video. Be sure to check that one out. And YouTube thinks you'll love it. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.